Seriously.
I've had a chance to know you, Hugh. I think we met several years ago.
Yep.
We've had a chance to chat here and there. We've done some projects together or talked about them, I guess. And Cheryl, this is the first time we've had a chance to meet. I think one of the things I really want to know about is where you're from. I know I keep forgetting where Hugh's from, but where are you from? Like, where'd you grow up?
Portland, Oregon.
You grew up in Portland, Oregon?
Grew up in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
So lived there until after we got married.
Yeah, so we grew up there as well. So we're both Portland.
So you were both born and raised in Portland,
Born
Oregon?
and raised in Portland.
Wow, Portland, Oregon.
Yes,
right? Not
yes.
Portland, Maine.
Not Maine,
Yes.
Portland, Oregon.
Well, tell me about growing up in Portland. What was it like growing up there? 'Cause it's a big city, but it's grown a lot in the past
It's not
20
as
years.
crazy as it used to be. It was actually a
No,
nice
it's
little
crazier
town.
now than it
Yeah, it
used
is
to be, yeah.
far crazier. But yeah, I mean, we just had a normal upbringing. It was a pretty sleepy town.
Right.
But we ended up doing. Cheryl and I met and got married in '91.
Okay.
So
Wow,
so we went. I think we moved out of there in 2002. So
Wow. Yeah.
so we lived as a couple and then children for about 10 years before we moved out to Denver.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
that
How'd
was
you
all.
meet?
Oh, there's a story. I'll let you try that one.
We actually met through mutual friends on a triple date, but we were not each other's date. So we were both doing youth ministry at the time, but for two different organizations. And a gal that I worked with, her boyfriend, I think at the time, I don't think they were engaged. Anyway, they set us up with other people.
Wait,
but
say
it
it
was,
again. Who set you up?
It was a girlfriend that I worked with doing
Okay.
youth ministry,
Yeah.
and a really good friend of his who he did youth ministry with. They were a couple, so they set up a triple date,
Yeah.
but we were not each other's date.
So you met on a triple date as someone else's date,
Yes.
I only called her back.
and you only called her back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you guys go on a date? Where are you at?
We actually went out for coffee at a pie shop. That's about all we had in Portland back in the day.
Right.
And then 3 months later, we were engaged. And then,
Is that right?
Yeah, it was fast.
So you guys liked each other right away.
Yeah, apparently.
For the most part.
Yeah, we did.
So what work were you doing? You mentioned a ministry. Yeah.
Yeah, she was just working for a group called Young Life. And I was working for another group called Youth for Christ, kind of a inner city youth ministry. And we eventually started a church in Portland. So mostly pastoral work. And we did that kind of more inner city Portland. So our family began to kind of grow up in that environment. Again, a little bit foreshadowing of even why Alton made sense for us. But then we eventually moved to Denver.
Okay.
And we did about a 14-year stint in Denver.
Is that right? Yeah.
Also started another church there, but also doing more consulting and stuff around the country with mostly church leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you moved to Denver in 2002?
Yep.
Is that?
Yep.
Why'd you move to Denver?
Oh, that's her story.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah, I'm
your
curious.
story?
She
but-
liked
These are
John
cool
Elway.
cities,
She
too.
liked
Yeah.
John
I mean,
Elway.
Like Portland's cool.
Yeah.
Denver's a pretty very
Yeah.
cool city.
Awesome
Yeah.
city.
When we left Portland and we went to Eugene, it was the first time that Hugh had been like on staff with a church and actually had a paid, like an actual paying job.
Sure.
So it was a very cushy life for about 9 months. And
In Eugene, Oregon.
In Eugene, Oregon. Yeah, on the kind of the outskirts of Eugene, Oregon.
Right, yeah.
But 9/11 happened, and right after 9/11 happened, he flew back to New York, and he was one of the first planes that they let into New York just to kind of see what was going on.
I see.
And long story short, he spent about a week there, met a waitress at a pub. It was just basically talking about life. And when he came back, he was just kind of like, I just feel like we're just kind of coasting here and not really doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I feel like maybe we're supposed to be doing something else. And I literally said, I'm not moving again. And he's like, okay, but just hypothetically, if we were to move, where would you move? And I'm like, I'm not moving. But and I just literally said this off the cuff, if I were to move again, I would only move to Denver, Colorado. That was because I was a huge Bronco fan, had always been a Bronco fan.
Sure.
That was literally the only reason behind it.
So you watched a lot of games at
Watched
Mile High Stadium.
Mile High Stadium.
On TV, yeah.
And less than a year later, we were living in Littleton, Colorado.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So
you just chose to move to to Denver, Colorado?
Literally just picked
right
up
outside.
and moved to Littleton, Colorado.
Yeah. What was it like living there? Like, how'd you like living in,
my gosh.
well, of course, you were also living in the suburbs. I mean, if I remember Denver.
back in those days, everywhere was a suburb. Denver was growing so fast. It was just all brand new, you know. So, we were probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes from downtown.
Right. Yeah.
Right where the mountains kind of start. So it was just people moved to Denver to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was 300 days of sunshine. But yeah, we just had a great time. Our two daughters played really high-level ice hockey. So hockey was kind of, the center of our world for quite a while. And, still caring for Ryan. So he was with us at that point. And then, eventually we found a local place here called Beverly Farms.
Okay, yeah.
And that's eventually what led us here. But we found, a place for Ryan where he could be with folks that struggle with some similar disabilities. And he was actually had a very good friend named Hallie who also had some disabilities, and they were just kind of best friends. And her mother found Beverly Farms here, told Cheryl, and so we all came out as two couples and our kids to kind of check it out.
Right.
And that was our first drop into Alton. And then he eventually stayed here with Hallie. So
so that's what introduced you to this community here.
Yeah.
Right? So you came out to Beverly Farms.
We would come out once or twice a year to visit him.
Yeah.
And there was just some crazy, strange draw about this town when we would come out. And I think probably the year before we moved out, we were just sitting having a conversation, I think at Tony's?
Yeah, Tony's.
Down at Tony's. And we were just basically just talking about life in general, how Denver was getting so unaffordable.
Okay.
And our oldest daughter was graduating as a special education teacher. Our youngest daughter was going to school to be a social worker. Our oldest daughter's husband is an Alton firefighter. The youngest, he's now an Alton teacher. But our family is also very biracial. And Denver is pretty much rich white.
Okay.
And I mean, I love Denver. It's amazing, but it is rich white.
Yeah.
And when we would come out and visit, the diversity here just was super cool to us and to our kids. And the thought of them ever being able to live a life in Denver where they literally just weren't working to try to survive was quickly approaching, because Denver was just getting so unaffordable. So probably one of our last visits, I was just like, would we ever consider moving here? And then we're like, no, that's so dumb. Who would leave Denver, Colorado to move to Alton, Illinois, right? And we're like, no, that's really dumb. But we just couldn't shake that feeling that maybe there was something here that we were supposed to pursue.
Yeah.
So we got home and we sat down with both of our girls at 2 different times and just had this conversation with them, hoping that they would say, that is stupid, and what are you thinking? And then we'd go, okay, we're done. We don't have to think about this anymore. Which they did. They both said those exact same words, but followed it up by, but I really do think it's something we're supposed to do. And so the whole family was on board, and we didn't know why at the time, but we were just like, we're supposed, and try explaining that to all your family and friends.
Sure.
We're leaving Denver and we're moving to Alton. They're like, what, where?
Because you lived in Denver for more than 10 years, right?
Yeah.
That's a full
I
life.
was probably the least excited.
You were the least excited.
Really?
They had to drive.
Probably about it.
I think I always tell people it's cool to do a new thing, but it's always the hardest thing about going is leaving something. And we had a really strong community there, great friends, and recreationally it was fantastic.
Right.
From mountains to fly fishing to golfing to.
Absolutely.
But I think it was more just leaving. And I think the idea of even living in the Midwest, it never hit the radar. We were West Coast people.
Yeah.
And Denver was still kind of West Coasty. It felt very West,
Yeah.
So the idea of actually moving to Illinois, I think just even that thought would hit my head, and I would go, that just sounds like I don't think we can do Midwest. you
Right.
know. And
What was your impression of the Midwest?
honestly,
Yeah,
it was
absolutely
just,
honestly. I'll tell you mine, too.
It was fried food and kind of a little boring, is what I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
because I had traveled. Most of my job was traveling,
Right.
and so I got to know lots of parts of the country and different parts of the world. And yeah, Midwest was nice. It was always nice. It was
Good
nice.
people.
Nice.
Good people.
But yeah.
Right.
Nice place to drive through, but not a place you'd want to live.
Yeah, but like when we would fly in to see Ryan, I remember we would pull little real estate flyers, and we could not
Yeah.
believe how cheap, beautiful. I mean, Alton is very unique in that it obviously has poverty issues because of the loss of population
Yeah.
for many years, but it has unbelievable residential real estate
Right.
as far as just beautiful homes. So you can tell there used to be a lot of resource in this town. And so you have houses from every part of the world is here, and we would just go, how can that only be $110,000? You know,
Like
because
that'd
that would be a
2.5 million
Yeah.
in Denver.
so there
Or more
was an
importantly, yeah.
intrigue
Yeah, right.
with the struggle. We for sure were drawn, I'd say, more to the struggle of Alton than we were anything else. It wasn't really about the Midwest. It was, you know, there's just something about this town that is very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
So, Cheryl, you talked about having a feeling that seemed to grow as you visited, and you'd go back to Denver and you'd come back. What was it? Like, what was it? I mean, you talked about there was something about this town.
I think there's a
that
little
drew
of what
you.
Hugh said. I think part of it was it's just a really cute, charming river town.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it was a lot of the diversity.
Uh-huh.
It was just seeing people of different everything,
Yeah.
you know, and I think I was just really drawn to that.
Yeah.
One friend of ours that said, when you figure out what you're supposed to do in Alton, let me know. We'd like to help you out financially. And so I called him. I said, hey, a local businessman has offered to donate a building to us. And so he threw some seed money at it. And we just began to kind of go, let's provide for this town what it doesn't have. It had plenty of bars. So we said, let's make the living room for Alton. And so we did a all-day brunch cafe, more of a kind of a daytime feel. And you can tell it's a huge building. And so very quickly it became kind of a premier event space. So we started to do a lot of weddings. And most of the time people just come in and you could tell they just liked having a space where they could meet and gather. And
Right.
it seemed like if there was going to be some meeting that was going to be strategic to something even related to the business movement or even some of the racial issues that were going on to whatever, it seemed like people would say, hey, meet me at the post. And so, it slowly is built out. We actually set it up as a nonprofit. And it's here to incubate good works. That's all. That was our only purpose statement. We just want people to build things out of here. And so right now we've got, a handful of micro businesses, and we let people use the building in any way that we possibly can to help them if they want to start a business or do whatever. So it's been a fantastic story. We actually, literally every day I go, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah. Where do you see Alton going from here? So when you first moved here, 2015, is that when you first?
2016?
2016. And you described it that there wasn't a lot to do for visitors, right? What's changed since then?
Well, there was always like something you could do for a day or two here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see there was tons of traffic.
Yeah.
We had a house right up on Langdon where we could watch traffic come over the bridge, and it all went right by. We'd hear the Harleys going down. They're all going down to Grafton, which is a great little spot. But people were not stopping in Alton, is the way it felt. And so, really what we're seeing now, the excitement is more living. People are coming in here to live because it's amazingly affordable. And it's a beautiful city, the way it's laid out on the river. And, you either love diversity or you don't. If you love diversity, this is a fantastic town for your kids to grow up in.
Right.
So I feel like the draw now would be more to live. Obviously our adult children now live here with us, and now we've got three grandchildren and two foster grandchildren. And, you know, if we were to say, hey, we're going to move out of Alton, I think they'd be really bummed out because they love living here. This town fits who they are as families, and
It's their hometown now.
yeah, it's hometown.
It's their
Yeah.
hometown.
And they, you
The
know, they are.
grandbabies have been born
They're
here.
different colors, and so when you think about raising children, you know, there's some real issues that if your kids don't look like everybody else, you know, there might be some problems. And this town, although, you know, obviously there's a lot of work to be done, there's a grace in this town for this and for trying to help people come together.
Yeah.